Welcome to East Lansing City Council discussion only meeting, October 10th, 2023. We'll begin with roll call.
Councilmember Brookover.
Here.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Watson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregg.
Here.
Mayor Bacon.
Present. Next up, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Councilperson Watson.
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Gregg. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, communication from the audience.
Can I make a point?
Yes.
I suspect that there's some people here to speak about the Trowbridge road item on our agenda, and that is not a public hearing tonight, so if you are interested in speaking on that item, this is the time for you to do it. It will be the only time that we have public comment during the meeting.
Up first, Jeff.
Mayor Bacon, council members, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Are you going to give me a timer on the?
Yes.
Thank you. After the October 2nd meeting with the Transportation Commission, many of the neighbors that attended weren't convinced by MDOT that the presentation of the proposed changes to Trowbridge Road. Many of them were confused or misunderstood some of the technical jargon that was being used. And I was confused why there wasn't a similar pushback regarding the MDOT soundwall study that had taken place probably 9 months ago. The conclusion of the soundwall study was disappointing for us. We were not going to get a soundwall, but it was accepted by the neighbors without hardly any questions at all. And after some thought, I attributed the neighborhood acceptance of the soundwall study to the completeness of the presentation that was given by MDOT at the time. The basis of the study was described along with definitions of the criteria used for evaluation. 32 field measurement sites collecting traffic counts and noise data were taken in the morning, in the evening, and at off time hours. 1,197 noise receivers were placed in common noise environments, which are neighborhoods and businesses, that was used as data to calibrate the models. Benefiting households within the business and businesses within the common noise environments were identified, and the criteria for reasonability and feasibility were defined. Detailed results of the analysis for the feasibility and reasonableness of the common noise elements was provided in tables and maps. 5 alternatives were evaluated for the Ivanhoe neighborhood, and a link to the detailed technical reports was provided. And as a result of this, people just accepted things because everything had been explained in layman's terms to them and they understood. They didn't necessarily like it, but they accepted it. In contrast, the Trowbridge project presentation did not define technical terms in layman's language, such terms as conflict point, or explain the differences between accidents and conflict points. MDOT was reluctant to discuss any data collected or any of the models that they used. They were asked several times in writing by me for the accident data that they were relying on to make the recommendations that they were making, to know with no response. Accident data was finally forwarded to the East Lansing Police Department when they requested it, which was then forwarded to me. I suggest a neighborhood meeting where MDOT can explain the project, present data and modeling results in layman's terms before this appears as an action item on the city council agenda. I think it'll make that meeting go much smoother. The issue of eastbound traffic from Woody's, Spring Hill Suites, Starbucks, and Arbor Forest apartments, with the elimination of the Palmer Drive crossover being directed past Arbor Drive, filling traffic gaps that might currently exist, was answered with broad statements that there would be sufficient gaps, even in morning and evening rush hours, with no supporting analysis to say tell us why they're saying that. MDOT reports there'll be a reduction in conflict points from 28 to 15. The reduction correlates to a potential reduction of accidents, and I accept that fact. It makes sense. However, what is the change in relative risk by moving conflict points from Marber Drive to 800 feet west? Plus, the traffic volume is going to be increasing past Arbor Drive because of the closure of the Palmer Drive crossover. Is risk increased by moving an indirect left to be completed west of where it is now in a higher speed traffic ramp where the posted speed limit will be 55 miles an hour? What alternatives were evaluated? For example, they could raise the curbing and raise the gore and the curbing of the gore, which is currently defined by solid white lines, which people cross all the time. They could post no left turn from eastbound Trowbridge Road to northbound Arbor Drive, which was the original design, but the no left turn sign was never erected. They could say right turn only from the rail staging yard.
30 seconds remaining.
These changes, 4 minutes? It says 4 minutes.
You have until 5.
Okay. These measures would eliminate 9 of the 13 reported crashes. The Transportation Commission has stated that issues be evaluated not in isolation but as a system. What effects do the proposed MDOT changes mean for the remainder of Trowbridge Road? Past projects have created acceptable increments in traffic when viewed in isolation, but collectively they add up. Perhaps it's time to study the entire length of Trowbridge Road before MDOT's proposed changes. Thank you.
Is this pass out that we were given, is this from you?
That's what I just...
Okay, it didn't have your name on it. It seemed very similar to what you were saying, so wanted to make sure that this was.
Sorry, I was
Yeah,
trying
no,
to
no.
fit it onto one page.
All good. I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding everything
Just in
correctly.
case you forget what I just said.
Right. No, perfect. I love it, actually. When people prepare statements, having a copy is actually really helpful, so.
Will that be entered into the record?
We can get a copy of it to Tammy.
Yes.
Yeah, it will be on the 17th communication.
Will it be attached to today's minutes?
Not usually, no. Public communication that originates from the public just gets added to our communications packet. Yeah.
Public comment? You can step up and just fill out the blue thing after. Yeah, just state your name for the record.
Sorry.
No, you're
I was
fine.
a little bit late getting here.
Nope, it's okay.
My name is Debbie Robinson. I am previous manager at Arbor Forest Departments, and I'm also speaking on the NDOT proposal. I'm here on behalf of the owners of Arbor Forest, that would be Lambrick Associates, and I now live in Grand Rapids, so I don't know if you want my address or not, but it's 3446 Burton Ridge Road in Grand Rapids. I continue to work alongside the management of Arbor Forest Departments, and just as incident, when I came in this evening from Grand Rapids, I rerouted myself and came in on 127 South, coming into Trowbridge Road. When we hit traffic was bumper to bumper at 5:30. When we hit the area that's 800 feet away from Arbor Drive, that is the proposed new crossover, we were doing 56 miles an hour. When we got to Trowbridge Road, we were doing 43. So we'd slowed down a little bit, but we still weren't at the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit that we hit right there. Just kind of a side note there. I do have some comments that I prepared, and I do have copies of them for you as well, in case I run out of time. Because I get sidetracked easily, I'm just going to read what I've gotten written here. Because the emphasis placed on this project by MDOT is centralized on safety rather than convenience, I will direct my comments more so towards safety despite the fact that the East Lansing Code of Ordinance clearly states in R 38.83C, and I quote, "The city of East Lansing shall incorporate complete street infrastructure into existing public and private streets to improve the safety and convenience of the users." I have a copy of that if you need that. You probably don't. You probably have it. I managed Arbor Forest for approximately 16 years. The apartment community has been an integral part of the Ivanhoe neighborhood for over 60 years. Arbor Forest is made up of 10 buildings with 80 apartments, 112 parking spots, and it connects to Palmer Lane, which is what it's on, connects to Trowbridge Road and Arbor Drive. It's licensed for rental to just over 200 people. Residents use the crossover just west of Palmer Lane on a daily basis to turn east when exiting onto Trowbridge, or they can follow Palmer to Arbor and cross over westbound traffic to turn east on Trowbridge. It's disturbing to have consideration given to closing off either or both of these crossover points. It is possible to see a potential need to close the crossover at Palmer Lane due to the new ramp configuration. However, closing off both of these crossover points seems unnecessary and may create an even greater and more severe crash potential under the MDOT plan. I fail to see the reasoning behind closing the crossover at Arbor Drive for a couple of reasons. Number one, closing both the crossovers and forcing all Arbor Forest and Ivanhoe neighborhood traffic wishing to go east to first go 800 feet west to the new crossover will most likely result in a higher level of crashes involving injury, simply due to the fact that stopped vehicles will be attempting to merge into highway traffic at speeds predicted to be 50 to 55 miles per hour, according to MDOT's own plan. In addition, during the normal heavy traffic of football season, Breslin special events, basketball, Jenison hockey games, students moving in and out, MSU faculty and worker traffic mornings and evenings, etc., there will be many occasions when it will be all but impossible to make the turn at the new crossover. It is yet to be explained how the crossover at Arbor Drive impacts the plan for improving the incoming ramp from 127, which obviously needs attention. Looking at page 4 of their plan, even more clearly on unnumbered page 20 of the MDOT plan, it's easy to see that the new ramp from 127
30 seconds remaining.
ends on Trowbridge Road east of Arbor Drive. If anything, this impact the crossover may be impacted at Palmer Lane, but not Arbor Drive. MDOT has addressed the issues of speed by stating that they will be using traffic slowing measures. However, when I look at these plans on page 13, the efforts to slow traffic are planned on the new ramp of 127, which does not decrease the speeds on the eastbound traffic coming in at the crossover point. One of the measures that was discussed to slow the traffic was a better presence of the East Lansing Police, but I don't see any indication of anyone in East Lansing Police Department being consulted about this, and we all know that the police staff is already stretched beyond capacity. I've got an additional few notes here, but for the sake of time, and so she doesn't throw anything at me, I will just let you read those for yourself. Thank you.
If you need to leave copies with Sandy and Murray, you can bring them up and I'll pass them down to the rest of the council.
Public comment? Hearing, seeing none. Anyone in the online?
There are no callers in the queue.
Next up, communication from council members. Councilperson Garcia.
No, thank you.
Councilperson Brookover.
No, thank you.
Councilperson Watson.
Good evening, everyone. It's October, and I work in public health. As many of you know, I've been working in public health since 2009. And I recently got my flu shot and took my children to get their flu shot and or COVID-19 shot. And we'll be bringing them back for the other one they didn't get. So just a reminder that COVID-19 is still out there. I still get notifications on the 2 days that I am at work that someone came in and was positive. I have had to test my children already because they were showing some symptoms that were concerning. So just a reminder, we can purchase COVID-19 test kits from the government. They'll send it to you for free. And there are also places nowadays that you can just walk into and get your flu shot or get your COVID-19 shot. October is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. As many of you know, I am a breast cancer survivor, so I just wanted to encourage everyone, your loved ones and yourselves, to check your breasts and get caught up on your mammograms if you happen to be behind. And that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregg?
Yeah, I usually try to be kind of upbeat in my comments when I make comments, but there's a couple of things that are weighing pretty heavily on my mind today. The first is a loss in our community. He was not an East Lansing resident, but he touched a lot of lives in East Lansing through his advocacy. Ted Lawson was a election rights advocate. He was a heavy, loud voice in the Voters Not Politicians organizing campaign that we've appreciated the redistricting results of, and he's been very active in our local Democratic Party, serving as the secretary, and was unfortunately murdered in Lansing over the weekend as he was canvassing for a city council candidate. He was shot, and I found out about it this morning, and I've been sitting with it all day, and I just wanted to speak his name and acknowledge that. And the other thing that's weighing heavily with me is the war in Israel, between Israel and Palestine, and the loss of life on both sides, and just sitting with that and realizing that that is touching our community as well, and just sending love in that direction. So if I'm a little bit somber tonight, that's why.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely want to echo those comments. Obviously, if you've done anything political, you know Ted Lawson, and I support anyone who's just that pro-democracy in any way, and he'll be greatly missed. Also, talked to Rabbi Bigman and Andy Shore and others in the Jewish community and our interfaith community here. We're uniquely positioned to come together and handle these types of things as a local community. Our faith communities are intertwined, and there's really no division. So I would just ask that we can come together, and even people who not necessarily promote any faith or anything like that, come together in our humanity. And just take care of each other here locally. I was sitting in my car, just felt the heaviness. This day has been very, very, very heavy and very intense. And I also sending out from me personally my prayers to the families of the young man Jermaine Jones, lost today in Clinton County. That was right as I was trying to prepare for the meeting. That's just almost unfathomable to try to process that simultaneously with everything else that's going on. So as requested from members of the public, I'm just going to ask for a moment of silence for these individuals. Thank you. And next up, I want to give, for a past event, I want to give kudos to this weekend for the Faith in Blue event. I heard from many members of the community and many members of clergy just about how successful the event was with the coat drive, food, and everything else that took place. I just want to thank law enforcement for that outreach and just their community policing model and everything they're doing to be a part of the solutions out here. And everything was really, it was just cool, everything that they did to reach out to the community and support people in need. And who knew we were getting to this point where coats would be, as we went from 80 degrees to coats overnight. So thank them for their work with this and their continued work in their outreach to the community. And then just a quick shout out for this Sunday for the Autumn Fest. I'm sure the city manager might have had this on his already, but really cool stuff. Horse ponies, horses, pumpkins, all that stuff this weekend, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. At the farmers market area right there. Please come out and take part in that and enjoy that, and let's just try to find some positivity. And I just told my group and anyone in my circle, just call and check on somebody right now. I think everyone's a little flooded. I'm pretty flooded today. So yeah, just reach out and check on people, make sure they're okay. City manager's report.
So my only item is a plug again for the photo contest for the 2024 calendar. Deadline is October 15th at midnight.
Thank you very much. Next up, 2023 update to East Lansing analysis of impediments to fair housing choice report. You're so special.
Take a pick. It's actually musical chairs. We'll be removing one without warning.
Hi, Council. Matt Apostle, Community and Economic Development Specialist here with the City of East Lansing. Tonight I'm here to briefly present on East Lansing's 2023 update to our analysis of impediments to fair housing choice report and answer any questions you may have. Sound good? Awesome. Alrighty, next slide. So what is this report and why do we update it? The Analysis of Impediments, or AI, to Fair Housing Choice Report analyzes various potential impediments to the affordability, accessibility, fair housing choice throughout the city of East Lansing. Now, as a recipient of U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, funding, in particular our annual Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG award, East Lansing must certify compliance with HUD's interim final rule on affirmatively furthering fair housing and take meaningful steps to address any potential fair housing challenges in East Lansing. Now, updating this report is a requirement as a part of this compliance. The last time this report was updated was 2015, and although amendments to HUD's affirmatively furthering fair housing requirements are still ongoing.
I'm impressed that's not been made into an acronym yet. That's
The AFFH. It looks like the city will not need to update this report again until at the earliest 2027. This 2023 update was completed by McKenna Associates in conjunction with city staff. So a big thank you to McKenna as well as my fellow staff members who assisted me in the review process of this document. Alrighty, next slide. So for these next few slides, I will just kind of provide a sort of view from 1,000 feet on each major section of the document, and of course, answer any questions you may have along the way. The first section details the community engagement efforts undertaken as part of the updating this report. Mainly took place in the fall of 2022. We had 2 focus groups and 1 community open house that were promoted and held to obtain broad community and stakeholder input. These events collectively had about 25 attendees from a wide range of backgrounds, as well as relationships to housing in East Lansing, whether they were a landlord, a renter, a homeowner, etc. Then additionally, in November of 2022, we had a joint meeting of the Housing Commission and Human Rights Commission to obtain additional feedback. And then following these efforts, McKenna did follow-up phone interviews with various attendees. Next slide. Next up is the demographic analysis, which if you've taken a look at the report, makes up the overwhelming majority of it. This analysis starts with a community profile, which basically identifies the various populations that live in East Lansing, as well as the Lansing-East Lansing Metropolitan Statistical Area, which is Clinton, Eden, Ingham, and Shiawassee counties, and reviews how these populations have clustered as well as changed over time. This, given this profile, HUD provides 7 indices that are used to analyze potential disparities in access to community assets based on income level as well as HUD demographic data. And I will disclaimer that HUD utilizes the following demographic categories for race: white, black, American Indian and Alaskan Native, Asian Pacific Islander, and additionally HUD collects data on whether individuals are Hispanic. So those are the demographic categories you will see throughout the report. Each index is fully fleshed out in the document, but individually highlight topics such as neighborhood poverty levels, school proficiency, job access, and much more. And as you dive into these sections, I think it's important to remember the inherent limitations of this kind of raw data in painting an equitable picture of the community. It's a helpful piece of the puzzle, but obviously it's not the whole picture. Next slide. Next section looks at the fair housing complaints and testing data on East Lansing properties from June 1st, 2015 to June 15th, 2022. This data was provided to McKenna by the Fair Housing Center of Southeast and Mid-Michigan. During this period, the FHC received 41 housing discrimination complaints, and the most notable statistic there is that 66% of these complaints were discrimination based on physical, mental, or emotional disability. Additionally, the FHC conducted 17 complaint-based tests and 8 survey tests of potential housing discrimination in East Lansing. Out of these, 9 out of 17 of the complaint-based tests and 5 out of 8 of the survey tests showcased evidence supporting the claim of discrimination. Next slide. Now, for local policy and program analysis, this section basically looks at the existing and potential East Lansing policies and programs and what, if any, impact they may have on fair housing. The following policies and programs are discussed: capital area housing partnerships programs, our down payment assistance, homeowner rehabilitation, and employee homeowner assistance programs. East Lansing's rental license program, the residential rental restriction overlay districts, the city's master plan, as well as policies concerning the expansion of accessory dwelling units. An overarching theme that you'll see brought up by McKenna in this section, as well as throughout the document, is that the city's policies and guiding documents represent kind of good faith efforts to make the community more equitable and accessible and further fair housing. So essentially what McKenna is saying is that we're not doing anything discriminatory by intent. But reports like these can help us to improve and grow on behalf of and for our community. Next slide. So there are a myriad of takeaways from the data and information provided in the report. On this slide, I've included some of them that are in the conclusion section of the document. For race and ethnicity, McKenna stated that community profile data indicates that segregation by race and ethnicity has increased slightly since 2010, and complaint and testing data shows that there has been some race-based housing discrimination in East Lansing since 2015. However, more testing must be done to determine the extent of that. For sex, gender, and family status, there was not enough data to determine whether there is discrimination on the basis of sex or gender. However, local studies noted a relative lack of low to moderate income families in East Lansing due to affordability. For senior and disability status, McKenna indicated that there does not appear to be any impediments to fair housing for seniors in East Lansing. However, East Lansing is significantly less ability diverse than the greater Lansing metropolitan statistical area, and the majority of complaints, again, to the FHC, 66%, were on the basis of some level of disability. In terms of housing choice vouchers and publicly supported housing, the report states that the need for affordable housing currently exceeds the number of publicly supported housing units and housing choice vouchers available to East Lansing residents. Now, based on all the information in the report, McKenna made the following recommendations for the City of East Lansing. They'd be to partner with an outside agency to engage in more comprehensive fair housing testing, clarify and make accessible on the city's website all medical and child caregiver exemptions within the existing residential rental licensing system, expand zoning for accessory dwelling units outside of the neo-traditional development district, utilize a portion of CDBG funds towards a security deposit assistance program, and work towards building a consortium with neighboring participating jurisdictions to qualify for an annual allocation of home funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Next slide. So what's next? Beyond meeting federal requirements, this updated analysis of impediments to fair housing choice report will serve as one of the many guiding documents for staff in housing and equity-related decision-making for years to come. Next slide, and any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, I thought I saw in the document before the rather extensive document that we did have some type of a program for security deposit assistance currently.
I would have to double check the document, but the city of East Lansing does not have a security deposit assistance program, at least through CDBG.
Okay, I'll have to look for it. Maybe I'm confused with what it was.
At least on page 4 of 106 of mine, you talk, or the executive summary talks about fair housing testing and enforcement data. And in that section, it says, quote, it's defined as a time period from June 1st, 2015 to June 15th, 2022. Quote, in that period, 41 housing discrimination complaints in the city of East Lansing were filed with the FHC, and the FHC conducted 17 complaint-based tests, as well as 8 survey tests of potential housing discrimination in East Lansing, end quote. And I'm aware from my past practice that testing is a legitimate occupation under federal law. So I think I've read this report, Matt. Is question number one, for me, is there someplace else in this report that shows me what the outcome of those complaints was?
I do not believe so. There's no outcomes listed. I believe all
Okay.
the data was given to us anonymous.
Well, anonymous, you said?
Well, like the persons who submitted the complaints were anonymous in the data given to us by the FHC.
Does that mean be
Okay,
identified?
that's not my question. My question is, there's a process in East Lansing through our Human Relations Commission so that if there are actual discrimination complaints, they could be followed up on. And so now for somebody in the public who wants to know the outcomes of these things, is there someplace they can go look and see if there was an outcome of a housing complaint in East Lansing?
Not in this document.
Okay, so is this data that's given to you by McKenna and Associates?
It was given to us by the Fair Housing Center of Southeast and Mid-Michigan. It was given to McKenna, who put it in the report.
Okay. Well, I guess what I'd like to know is, I believe that there are housing discrimination things going on in East Lansing, and I think we have a process set up to work on those, and so I guess I'd ask you to, at some point, come back to us and let us know, and let the public know exactly what the process is and what the outcome has been, if you can even find out. I don't think anonymity is an issue. The question is, was there a complaint under federal, state, or local law, and did somebody pursue the complaint, and was there an outcome administratively or legally from the complaint? And so that's what I'd like to know, please, when you get a chance. Thank you.
Yes, I plan on, we've reached out to the FHC to ask a couple other questions on that testing data, so we can bring that up as well.
Great, thank you.
Questions?
I have a question. Matt, I was wondering on page 86, table 18, if you can just speak out loud about that table.
Just 1 second, I'm gonna scroll to it.
Councilmember Watson, is that table 18, the number of bedrooms for units for publicly supported housing? I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same page that you are. Thanks.
What page was it again? I'm in the 80s now.
86.
86, all righty.
Table 18.
There we go. I found it. So essentially, looking at it right now, I see it as showing the number of bedroom units for these different types of publicly supported housing, whether it be outright public housing or project-based Section 8, which would be individuals at Deer Path or other places like that, HUD subsidized units. And then HCV program would be individuals who, in all likelihood, port a housing choice voucher to live in this community.
So the numbers, 0 for public housing? So that means that that's not available in our community.
Public housing as defined by HUD in this, yes.
All right. And then the project-based section is Deer Path and Tower Gardens?
I'm not positive on all the units, but yes, you're on the right track.
And then,
Tower's not in East Lansing. I think
Yeah,
Coolidge
like-
Court is in, parts of Coolidge Court are in.
Bailey Liberty Hyde as well, yeah.
and then the housing choice vouchers, which is your scattered sites where people can move in if the landlord is accepting the housing choice voucher.
Yes, that would be housing choice vouchers.
Okay. And that's at 126 for one bedrooms or up to 40 households with children. I'm curious what the city of Lansing's looks like, as well as our other suburban areas. Sometimes you find problems in areas where poverty is concentrated. And so thinking about as Greater Lansing, which we are, Greater Lansing communities, it's like, how do we do our part and do our job to also attract people who have the housing choice vouchers? And I've mentioned, just kind of before that people do want to, they like our school district, they do want to move to this area, but the affordability is a problem. And then it's like we're perpetuating something as well if we're not even making it an option in our city. And like I said, I'm curious what the other suburbs are offering, as well as what the city of Lansing is shouldering. Thank you, please.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That triggered another question to me, just the difference between, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around some of these definitions. So project-based, Section 8 would be a purpose-built apartment complex such as Deer Path that was conceived to be low-income housing as it was built, and then what's the difference between that, between other HUD multifamily housing?
I'm not sure, but I could
Because
look
we don't
into
have
it.
any of that.
Yeah.
Okay, just if you could, shoot me that info when you get it, just out of curiosity, because we are currently talking a lot about low-income housing and moderate-income housing and just where it fits in our community. So fairly interested in all of aspects of this topic.
Alrighty.
Questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, Matt.
All right, thanks, y'all.
All right, next up, item 6.2, discussion of Michigan Department of Transportation, US 127 improvements and the proposed safety modifications to Trowbridge Road.
Hey, good evening, Council. Scott House, Director of Public Works. I'm here with our colleagues from MDOT. Yeah, right. I'll introduce John Harden from MDOT, Rick Schlotty from Bergman, Dave Harrison from MDOT, and Greg Waite from Bergman as well. So we're here before to discuss the proposed MDOT improvements to 127 and how they impact Trowbridge. The reason we're here is that the MDOT project is requesting to use Trowbridge right away. And as per past precedent, that would come before council for approval. This appeared before the Transportation Commission on the 2nd of October, and they approved it unanimously with 3 conditions. The 3 conditions were the share informal data from MDOT with pre and post construction. 2, if the design does not work out, that MDOT would address any issues. And 3, to encourage increased enforcement. And also, I want to take a couple steps back about how the 127 mobility and safety improvements came about. That a lot of the impetus for that came from the input of the City of East Lansing to the MDOT TSC, responding to all the accidents that the police and fire are responding to. Every winter, Nixles would be flying every night. We'd be sending police cars there all the time. So this is truly a safety improvement and a mobility improvement. They're going to talk about this in greater detail. Engineering staff fully endorses this. This is a safety improvement. And it hurts to see, we know we're frustrating the neighborhood, but at the end of the day, there's some inconvenience with the trade-off with safety. And what's going to be built by MDOT is going to be, it's going to be modern construction. Cars will be moving faster, but they have mitigation measures to help make this a safe end product. So from here, I'll turn it over to MDOT.
Good evening. I'm Dave Harrison. I'm the overall PM for the project manager for the project. So I'm just going to handle the first couple slides here, and then I'm going to turn it off to Rick.
Actually, time out. So no abbreviations. So PM, project manager, and we're just going to spell it out, and we're going to explain it very plain.
Yeah.
We love acronyms, but we're going to make up something.
We have a ton of acronyms at MDOT. I'll have to try to remember all that.
Thank you.
So could y'all tell us who Bergman is?
We're a consulting.
Okay, so who's
Civil
hired
engineer.
Bergman?
MDOT, yeah.
Okay.
They're our main consultant, so our main designers for the project.
Traffic engineer consultants?
We are the full design, so the road design, drainage design, bridge design.
Okay, so we're not hearing from in-house traffic engineers from the state of Michigan. We're hearing from consultants that are hired by the state of Michigan. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I think you're going to have both because you have MDOT staff here too that have input onto this.
I understand that. I just want to know who designed it.
Yes, Bergman did,
Thank
under
you.
the direction of MDOT.
Thank you.
And also, we didn't say this is a $204 million project. There's $1.2 billion worth of investment in the mid-Michigan area. So this is a huge win. A lot of our roads that were failing, our bridges that were unsafe, they're getting reset. So this is good news. So,
Okay, next slide, please.
you can go just advance on that.
You do this one?
Next slide.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I just wanted to give sort of an overview of the whole project so you can get an idea of the big picture here. So this project is sort of part of a three-phase project. The first phase was kind of done this year. It was the two bridges connecting the ramps from US 127 to I-496. Those were done this year. The next phase of the project is US 127, I-496 between I-96 and I-496. That's a full reconstruction project. That's the one we're talking about here tonight. That's what Scott already kind of brought it up. It's a $200 million project, big reconstruction, mostly safety improvements, things like that. And the third is the project just to the north of that, which is US 127 between I-496 and I-69. So I guess the main improvement we have out that we are proposing out there is we're widening to 3 lanes between I-496 and Dunkel Road. It's currently only 2 lanes, which results in a lot of operational and a lot of crashes, a lot of near misses, things like that. So with the addition of the 3rd lane, it really opens a lot of things up. We will be.
Can I ask a really stupid question? We're talking about 3 lanes on both sides for a total of 6? So each 2-lane directional traffic? Okay.
Yes.
So I was like, that doesn't make sense. But then I realized it did. Thank you. We are really, really not traffic engineers, so dumb it down as much as you can.
Okay, yeah, you can.
For me, I'm sure the rest of council understands it, but I appreciate small words. Thanks.
We tried to depict that in the picture. I'm not sure if it
I can kind
goes out well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to see. So with this, we're also reconstructing the Dunkel Road and Trowbridge interchange ramps and the Trowbridge tie-in with the existing. Reconstructing and realigning the northbound exit ramp to Trowbridge, which is one of the things we're going to talk about later. We're adding 2 dedicated lanes, northbound 127 and westbound I-496, as well as southbound US 127 and eastbound 496. We're also doing work on 18 bridges. I think 5 of those were complete reconstruct, and the other were just sort of preventative maintenance type stuff, or heavy maintenance that we needed to do. We're putting in a lot of freeway lighting, some new freeway lighting, mainly between Dunkel and Trowbridge. We have some under-bridge lighting we're adding too, because we're widening some of those bridges, and we thought it was going to turn out a little bit dark. So this work's going to all occur between, you're going to see some work out there pretty soon, probably as soon as Monday. The project, we have had our bid letting, we have a contractor now, so work's probably going to start soon, very soon. Probably not a lot of work is going to get done this year.
And for clarification, it's not going to be on the city right away.
It's mostly, mostly prep work for next year. The main project's going to happen in 2024 and 2025, and then the third portion will be 2026 and 2027.
And that, just kind of following up on Director House's comment that the work that's starting would not be in the city right-of-way, when would you anticipate work starting that would be part of the city right-of-way, assuming that everything kind of?
We don't have a full schedule from the contractor yet, so we're not really sure exactly when they're going to do that, but
Okay.
it'll probably won't happen until at least 2024,
Okay, so a ways.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
as early as the spring maybe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide.
So then I think hit the next slide again and it'll run the simulation. Oh, sorry, go back. There's a play button on the bottom. If you didn't PDF it. I didn't PDF it, did I?
You can just describe what we're supposed to be seeing.
Maybe we could hook your laptop up there.
Yeah.
I do want to add that this
We can look it up there.
This presentation is similar to the one we gave on October 2nd to the Transportation Commission. We did add a few things since then based on discussions that we had at that meeting. This was one of those things that we added.
We have animation, so.
Excellent. So you would help me with this slide. That's 4. So we can-
All right, perfect. So on this first slide here, what we're showing is, so like you said, a lot of jargon, engineering jargon will be on these slides, so we'll work through it. But what this slide in general shows is we ran a traffic analysis of the entire corridor. So it went from south of I-96 to north of 496 in order to look at, simulate what is going on out in the roadways. And it's very, I mean, for all of us who have driven this so many times, we know what's going on, but what we do is we'll put this in a traffic model software in order to look at it, and then we can evaluate what's going on out there with proposed fixes, like Dave talked about, looking at laneage. So as part of this project, I'm just going to kind of give an overview of the entire job, and it'll relate down into the Trowbridge area. But for the entire job, what we looked at a number of different scenarios. Dave mentioned the 3 lanes in each direction. We also looked at an active traffic management solution, which is what you see on US 23 in Ann Arbor as well, with the hard shoulder usage, where during certain times of the day you move into those lanes. So based on this, based on this slide right here, this is at I-96 and 127 where they join. And you can see this is what we call the AM, or it's the morning peak, where traffic is moving into the East Lansing area. And the red is indicating that, traffic is just backing up down the roadway. So you can see it. This is primarily due to the Dunkel Road interchange and lane drops. So lanes that are, we're losing lanes through there, which is really making traffic kind of have to converge together in order to kind of move through the corridor there, and it's really kind of, making that big congestion.
And also to clarify, this is not taking into account like current construction backups and stuff like that. This is kind of as was functioning before we started messing with it. Okay.
Yeah, correct, exactly. If you go to the next slide, so this is at the 96-127 interchange. Click again. This is the area, so if you hit play on this one, I think you can just hit the down arrow again. Yeah. So this is up at the 496 Trowbridge interchange with 127. Just a similar thing. This is, again, the morning peak where we're looking at traffic and how it's moving through the area. I should note that these operations, so what we look at when we're doing these traffic analysis is we look 20 years into the future beyond the build date. So the build date that we had originally anticipated for this job is 2025. So we'll look 20 years ahead to see how everything operates and make sure that it's operating well into that time frame as well. So on the screen you can see what is going on here as well, as traffic is backing up again, as we all know, going down 496 and up 127 and creating issues. So this is just all part of the bigger thing that we're looking at as part of this project, and we'll get into some of the fixes that we talk about and how it kind of relates down into the Trowbridge area. If you go to the next slide, please. So as part of this overall project too, we looked at, we did an extensive crash analysis through the corridor. There's up on the slide, it shows, so I guess I'll just talk crash analysis. So when we look at this, we're looking at existing crashes that occurred through the corridor. And like I said, with the traffic, we're looking at fixes based on traffic. We're also looking at fixes based on the crashes that are through here, traffic crashes. So this is a 5-year period that we look at. It did not include COVID-19 timeframe, so we took that period of time out because of how traffic operated through that timeframe, much less traffic. We don't want to include it in there. Same with the traffic analysis, and I'll kind of talk about that in another slide. But on this slide in particular, on the left-hand side, that's all the red dots shown on there are crashes that occurred, and those were occurring through that along 127, 496, up in the big curve, the big sweeping curves that go through the interchange area there. And like Scott had mentioned earlier, a lot of resources need to go in there and take care of these accidents that are happening. Everybody knows about the yellow barrels up at the exit for northbound to eastbound Trowbridge, and those constantly getting hit. So those are things that we're looking at as part of the crash analysis. If you go on to the next slide. So as part of the crash analysis that we looked at, as part of the traffic analysis that we looked at, we also looked at what we call geometrics. So we're talking about the big sweeping curves that are on the roadways, the up and down curves, what we call vertical alignment running through there as well. And one section in particular that we looked at that we could adjust is northbound 127 as it heads kind of through Trowbridge, through 496. It's got big speed sign advisory signs there. I think they're for 60 miles an hour through that area. And traffic takes it, beyond 60 as they're going through there. MDOT in the past has put down what's called like a friction surface sealer to help with traffic going through that area to try and help with potential crashes that go through there. But as part of this project, because we are going through and reconstructing the roadway, we were able to realign the roadway, push it further to the west. So what we're looking at doing is pushing it, I think it's 150 feet to the west, and we can increase that speed of the roadway to 70 miles an hour, so from 60 to 70. So looking at, the traffic again, the crash concentrations through this area and such, and we're able to make this improvement. And this kind of leads into the next slide.
Can I just,
Yep.
I interrupt a lot, sorry.
No, go
Can we
ahead.
go back one slide? I just want to make sure I'm looking at it correctly. So the left side is labeled single vehicle, and then the right side is labeled rear end. So am I understanding this correctly, that it looks like the majority of traffic accidents are a single driver losing control of their vehicle?
Yeah, I think on that slide, we kind of highlighted the single vehicle crashes in that location to kind of
Okay.
show how many were happening. And on like you said, on the right-hand side, we were highlighting the rear end crashes.
So this
And-
wouldn't be like the multi-car pile-up big weather things?
Yeah,
These
this-
are just more like the day-to-day problems?
Yeah, these are
Okay.
that specific thing. Down at the Dunkel Road interchange, which is the right-hand side, a lot of rear end crashes because of that lane drop in there and traffic getting on from Dunkel Road.
Okay.
So, yep,
All
thank
right,
you.
thanks, appreciate that.
So, yes, the next slide here. So this slide is specific. I kind of talked about the northbound. So this is northbound 127 getting off to the eastbound Trowbridge roadway. And this is the area where it's got, you can see on the left-hand side, it's got the exit 25 mile an hour speed limit sign. A lot of crashes occurring in this location. The barrels in that picture right there look like they're intact, but they're not a lot of times. Traffic takes this very quickly, and they run out of room very fast. That curve comes up on them quickly. So this is one area that we were looking to modify. If you go to the next slide. So what we were able to do, and this took a lot of coordination. So this ramp in particular, like I mentioned, it does go over two railroads. So it goes over CN or GTW railroad, and it also goes over the CSX railroad. Amtrak operates through here. So a lot of coordination and permitting needed in order to get this to where we're at here today. So what we're looking at doing is increasing the speed on that ramp from 25 mile an hour speed up to 45 miles an hour. So it makes it a little bit of a more sweeping curve through this area to help drivers exiting 127 and as they come down and get onto Trowbridge Road. If you go to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight. We want to make sure that we're following, all standards and everything else. This is a Federal Highway Administration design guides, what we call the Green Book. So it's, I discussed during the Transportation Commission meeting here, when you have a 70 mile an hour design speed on the freeway, what you really need to be looking at, you need to be looking at your speed differential as you're coming off of 127 and exiting a ramp so that it's not too slow, or else you get into trouble like you're having on the Trowbridge exit ramp right now. So part of the design standards is upping that speed on that ramp so that when traffic is coming off, it can traverse that ramp appropriately.
Can I plain English what you
Yeah.
just said back to you and just make sure that I understood it correctly?
Yep.
So essentially, because it seems like I think our residents are hearing that the ramp is going to be a higher speed, and I think that equates in the mind to a dangerous situation because cars will be moving more quickly. But it seems like what the problem is happening is the larger amount of deceleration that's required to go from 75 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour, and that's where people's cars are spinning out and they're hitting guide rails and they're hitting those our very popular yellow barrels.
Yep.
So essentially, they're still slowing down to surface street speed. They're just doing it with like a smaller bite in the middle so that they're not going to be spinning out.
Yeah, they're doing it, we're providing them increments of time, increments of
But the
speed
idea
to
is
slow.
still to have them enter Trowbridge Road at surface street speeds,
Yep.
not highway speeds.
And we do have a slide showing that we have advisory speed signs on the ramp specifically that note that speed limit is, the advisory signs note 30 miles an hour ahead.
If I may jump in here real quick, one of the overarching things for MDOT is zero death. They're trying to improve the roads to reduce needless loss of life and limb, and to avoid responding to accidents. It's prevention up front. And it sounds kind of counterintuitive. It's going faster, but traffic's going to move at the rate it's going to move at, and sometimes it has to move faster to be safer.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that
I
differential
have a question
between,
coming.
yeah, sorry.
Councilperson Brookover?
So I think I understand that you guys are striving for an engineering equation, and I guess maybe you can use the word counterintuitive, but I just want to interrupt you. So right now, the problem is the posted speed limit as let's say you're going north and you want to get off on Trowbridge, and the posted speed limit on the expressway is 60, correct?
70. It's a 70 mile an hour enforceable speed limit through there with a 60 mile an hour advisory sign, warning sign
Okay.
through that curve. So it's 70 mile
All
an
right,
hour.
so people are being warned to reduce their speed to 60 before they get to what I'm going to call the exit onto Trowbridge, correct?
It's just like, the curve is just after that there. So I don't remember exactly where the speed warning sign
Okay,
is.
can we all agree, I mean, you've driven it. Everybody goes too fast there, right? And then they come off the exit and they're still going too fast. And so what's the speed limit down on Trowbridge?
30.
Okay. And so the engineering solution to that is you want to increase the speed on the expressway, and ergo, then you want to increase the speed on the exit onto Trowbridge, correct?
We're not increasing the speed on the expressway per se. We are increasing the radius of the curve to accommodate the speed that drivers are already driving.
So you're allowing, well, except we all know they're not going that speed because we've seen the accidents, and I've had clients that have had accidents, and so I understand that I don't want to argue with you guys, but the reality is everybody goes too fast and they come off on the exit and they're going too fast, and what you're trying to do is mitigate that by changing the geometry so as they come off the expressway, they have more room to slow down, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But I think Scott said, when he introduced this thing, the idea here was cars will be moving faster. And that will be true on Trowbridge Road under your redesign, correct?
Well, I guess, I don't know if we can progress I can talk more about the Trowbridge Road.
Could you just answer that question?
So you're talking specifically coming off the ramp at that location right there? I don't think we can say whether or not they're going to be going faster at that location. Like I said, what we're trying to do is get them off the highway safely according to federal highway guidelines. And we're also telling them that the speed limit is down at 30 miles an hour on Trowbridge Road. So are they going to be going faster? I don't know that I can answer that. That's something we would have to look at post-construction, I believe, so.
Okay, and so we can all understand, the federal highway guidelines are simply guidelines. Just like your uniform manual, the Michigan Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices are guidelines.
Yep, and they're
Correct.
guidelines for safety purposes and everything else that we have going on in order to, like Scott noted, to try and go towards zero deaths. They have a safe approach? Safe system approach.
And your data shows no deaths on Trowbridge within that time period that you were looking at, correct?
Specific to the location that we studied at the Arbor Drive crossover, there's no deaths at that location. But the idea isn't to wait for a death that comes during the traffic. It's to mitigate potential issues that could cause serious injury. No, well, I guess let me just finish.
Sure.
It's to mitigate potential serious injury and potential death, because drivers are going to make mistakes. They're going to definitely make mistakes out there. They may not see a sign. They may not follow exactly what's out there. And it's our responsibility as professional engineers to make sure that we are striving towards that 0 deaths and to accommodate that.
To mitigate the risk.
To mitigate the risk.
Okay, I understand. Thank
Yep.
you.
You mind if I have one more addition?
Yeah. Yep.
So one thing that Rick and I were talking about today is there is an interesting opportunity that we have right now. So the last time I-496 US 127 was modified this drastically was in the 1960s. So we have a 60-year window where we have an opportunity to make an improvement that could be for another 60 years. So yes, we're looking at 5 years of crash data to justify something, but in reality, we should be looking longer because that's the design life of our design.
Just one quick question on the, I think that since we're in the speed questions, with speed mitigation, was particular enforcement patterns that was, I thought that was included in there. Does that include, obviously, we cross over there with MSP, East Lansing, Michigan State, you're right off Meridian. Like what is, as far as that part of the speed mitigation and signage and that kind of thing, are we going to need more enforcement? And I'm thinking major event times and that kind of thing. Is that where I'm looking at? That's where the real challenges come on those days. Is that kind of?
Mayor, from my experience on special events days, the police do a great job of teaming up with MSU and local agencies, and they really saturate the area. So they do a good job. I think the other challenge on special event days are people that are new. Currently, the 127 corridor can be difficult if you're a new driver in the area. A lot of people get lost, they get off on the long ramps, and that's where I think a lot of the conflicts happen on Trowbridge is people get off at the wrong ramp and like, oh, I didn't want to be here, and they take the wrong turnaround and they do other things.
The other thing too, on a future slide is MDOT is adding 55-mile-an-hour speed signs further to the west down like the eastbound Trowbridge roadway. That'll be enforceable by police now. Previously, there were no enforceable signs down there, so now the police will be able to enforce further to the west down what was previously unenforceable, like an unenforceable area, I guess. So
You just mixed me up. Are you talking going east on Trowbridge or west on Trowbridge?
this would be going eastbound, but it's further west. It's like further down the ramp.
It's right at the current wastewater treatment plant.
Did I just hear you say then that the speed limit on Trowbridge after this construction's completed will be 55 miles per hour?
No. So this is now we're on the ramp section. I guess I got ahead of myself.
You're coming
on
off
slide,
on the ramp?
You're coming off on the ramp,
Okay.
yeah. So you're coming off the 70. We have speed limit signs that are going to be 55, and then we have advisory signs again for 30 mile an hour ahead. So none of that stuff exists currently. So it's all an improvement.
All right, keep going and we'll stop interrupting.
All right, next slide, please. So here, now we get down onto Arbor Drive, and this kind of shows the complete area here with regard to the ramp modification that's coming off of northbound 127 going to eastbound Trowbridge Road, and then it shows closure of the direct. So this is the direct left off of Arbor Drive that we'll be talking about, and then, as was mentioned before, there's the relocation of the existing westbound to eastbound Trowbridge Road crossover. That's just east of the Arbor Drive direct left crossover there. So this kind of shows just the area incomplete. I wanted to note on the left-hand side of the slide there, that we have held a number of meetings with regard to this specific topic, including on-site meeting at Emerson Park in July of 2022, so residents could just walk there and we could discuss the the project, in particular, the proposed modification for the direct left relocation. We also had a meeting with the Tri-County Bicycle Association, Red Cedar Community Association, large stakeholder meetings that included all stakeholders kind of throughout the area, including East Lansing, the hospitals and such. And then we did have a meeting with the East Lansing Public Police Department, Red Cedar Community, and the representatives there. We've also had multiple public meetings that included discussion on this specific topic down on Arbor Drive and Trowbridge Road and such. In total, we've had about 180 separate meetings on this job, and I think around 40 or more of them had this specific topic discussed. So the focus on this job was public and community involvement, and that's what we were trying to accommodate. If you go on to the next slide, please. So kind of diving into the information and the Arbor Drive crossover. So here we have the crashes that were found through this area here. In particular, these are related specifically to the direct left at Arbor Drive. So a number of these crashes occurred due to vehicles making a left turn into the neighborhood, into the Arbor Drive neighborhood. So they're traveling eastbound and they make a left turn, which is prohibited on that specific crossover. It's meant for a direct left out of the Arbor Drive neighborhood. Additionally, there were crashes where just on the south side you have the railroad property area with you have obviously the diamond crossing there, and you had railroad vehicles attempting to go through that and make a direct left through that area, which is not good. And then we also had traffic going northbound, getting off on that ramp, and then attempting to go all the way across and get off, use that Arbor Drive crossover as well. So a number of different situations here that we looked at with regard specific to this crash area at that crossover. On the next slide, this just shows the types of crashes through the area. So angle crashes were had through this area. So with the direct left crossover, the types of crashes that we might see are angles. You could see T-bone crashes and such, which are higher severity crashes that we're trying to mitigate as part of this overall project here. On the next slide, this just shows the injury types. Number of possible injuries and such through here, but as I noted previously, we are looking to fix this situation and mitigate it as engineers on this job. Next slide.
Kind of give Rick a break here from talking. Hi, I'm John Harden. I'm with MDOT. I'm a projects and contracts engineer with the Lansing TSC, and kind of going through some of the safe system approach that is a main topic for Federal Highway Administration that gets passed down to MDOT. We look at a lot of different aspects when it comes to intersections dealing with safety. The main thing we look at from an overall high-level aspect is conflict points. And a conflict point is defined by Federal Highway as any locations where paths of road users coincide. To kind of explain a little bit more on that in detail, there's this image here on the top left of the slide, and if you can see the bolded, if you would picture the north being the top of the page, if you're making a left turn through a standard four-leg intersection, that pathway intersects all other pathways of movements within that vehicle, and any path conflict or path intersection between two paths is considered a conflict point. There's several different conflict points that are described or in categories. First being a crossing conflict, and then you have diverging conflicts and weaving conflicts. You also have merging conflicts, which also feed into the diverging. So there's really three main ones. They all have associated severities as far as injury-related incidents go. And to the right of that image, we have a little image that was taken from Federal Highway Administration based off the angle of the incident itself and the severity. So the red color is essentially a higher severe or higher probability for a severe related injury, crash, or fatality. As you work towards the green color on the bottom side of that image, that indicates a less severe based off historical data of crashes. To note on the types of crossing or the conflict points, our crossing is your more perpendicular or head-on type angled crashes that result in a higher probability for fatality and serious related injury. Your merging conflicts and diverging conflicts usually end in a side swipe or a rear end collision, which shown on this FHWA, Federal Highway Administration severity by angle image here is a less severe accident. So when we look at Arbor Drive from an existing configuration dealing with conflict points, we have total of 28 metrics from a conflict point diagram. The main ones that I want to point out is the 8 crossing conflicts dealing with that intersection. If we move into the next slide, it shows the proposed, yep, there you go, proposed conflict map with our changes with relocating those 2 crossovers. And the main thing I want to point out here is that we're going from a total of 8 crossings to, with this proposed new configuration, we're reducing that 6 total crossing conflict points to a total of 2. And I know there's a lot of predictive analysis that we start to run into with how FHWA, Federal Highway, is looking at different crashes. And I know Greg has some more information on the predictive side of things.
But let's give a hand for John. That's a lot to remember about conflict points.
I have a question.
Yeah, questions.
What are the 2 conflict points that will exist with the change?
So if you see on this image, there are 2 bright red points that are brought out, and they both have the letter C labeled on them. That indicates the 2 crossing conflicts based off our proposed diagram.
So the crossing conflicts in this proposed diagram, they're one on the western crossover is mainly for larger vehicles using the loon, we call it. I know that's the big paved surface on the south side that we're proposing for larger vehicles to traverse through there. Because remember, and I don't know if we've covered this yet, there's a lane reduction that's being proposed out here as well to help with speed and to help manage traffic as it approaches East Lansing's 30-mile-an-hour zone. But that crossing conflict would be most notable when you're using a large vehicle turning through the loon. The crossing conflict on the east side is mainly for vehicles that are using the crossover and traversing to the far right lane to then possibly enter into Arbor Drive. So when we measure these conflict points, we can look at it from a macro perspective, like an entire road network is a bound, or we can look at it here from a more micro perspective where each lane is its own conflicting path. So because we did a micro perspective, we have the crossing conflict in the Michigan U-turn crossovers. I'm sure there are more questions.
Any questions on conflict points? I know that was
Well,
something.
yes and no. I mean, it seems like I'm looking at how far the Arbor residents are going to be driving opposite the direction that they want to be in order to get onto the street. And I'm understanding, I think, seeing the pictures makes me understand some of the feisty communication we've been receiving, and so, I kind of get it. Also, I want to talk to you guys about having a dedicated left turn signal on a couple of different things onto MDOT Road, so just let me know who I need to talk to about that, since you're here. So, I do definitely understand that, like, any change we make in traffic is going to cause some inconvenience, like my preferred dedicated left turn, but which I deal with every day, so, which doesn't exist. So I understand it, but I'm looking at the initial conflict point. And so it looks like residents currently exiting Arbor Drive will be moving through approximately 7 conflict points in order to get onto the road. But then they're still essentially having to traverse, whether they're leaving their neighborhood or entering their neighborhood, they're in areas that are marked with the red C. And I guess I understand, from your perspective, you probably can't design a road that's conflict point free unless it's a single lane moving in one direction and never turning so I kind of get that, but I guess the number has been reduced.
Maybe to elaborate on your comment there, we can think about it from the perspective of the driver's perception.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're the driver that's entering Trowbridge Road from Arbor Drive. You're looking left, you're looking right, you're looking straight through, but you can't look all directions at the same time. So what the conflict point matrix or map that we're showing here shows that there's a high density of these conflicts that a normal driver, I would consider myself a normal driver, wouldn't necessarily be able to perceive all at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Because they're not thinking in highway engineering math when they're pulling out onto their roadway.
What's the statistical analysis of my traversing this intersection?
I bet driving with you is a blast.
You should talk to my wife more often. You would have all kinds of conversations.
Yeah, I bet you're just real fun in the passenger seat, but okay. Okay, I think I got it. So we can't take away their risk entirely because they're still merging into traffic when they're leaving their neighborhood, but this proposal offers considerably fewer opportunities for them to be in conflict with another driver.
Okay. Yeah, just right on.
Got it.
That's a great way to say it, yes.
So what's the speed limit at Arbor Drive with reconfiguration?
So are you?
On Trowbridge.
On Trowbridge going westbound?
Yes, sir.
30 miles an hour. So there is I'll get to another slide in a minute here, but there's a 30 mile an hour sign right there with no other enforceable signs beyond that. So, all right, so now we're getting into some of the additional speed. So I got a number of slides here on the speed limit. So these are the speed limit signs that I talked about a little bit earlier. On this map, it's a little bit difficult to tell, but I think like John noted before, this is near the
wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah. So currently there are no speed limit signs there. This is coming off the freeway. MDOT is adding 55 mile an hour speed limit signs here in order to help with the traffic speed through this area. These are enforceable, like I noted, so it can be policed through this area.
So currently, obviously, people will be decelerating from 75 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour, or 70, I guess. Let's pretend everyone's obeying the law.
You're driving all the same.
But there's no marked speeds in between those, other than the suggested curve limiting speeds. So now we will have a signed interim speed that basically tells drivers when you get to this point, you should have reduced your speed to 55 miles an hour.
Yeah, we're going to start taking them down before
Okay.
the first speed sign they see is 30.
And about
Right.
what distance are we talking about? Is this a quarter mile, half a mile? How far are they traversing while they're decelerating?
So you're talking about coming off of the freeway?
Yeah, from our 70
coming-
mile an hour sign to our 30 mile an hour sign, how far have they traveled?
I don't know the distance on that specifically. It's something that, go ahead. What was that?
I said I could measure from space if I had the
If-
Wi-Fi password.
Are we talking fractions of a mile or a mile? Just ballpark.
Fractions.
Fractions, okay.
Yeah, less.
And now we're going to have an interim speed that's kind of like you said, enforceable. So we could
Yeah.
have a person
So
in a,
what's the speed now, 70 or 30?
The speed limit is basically dictated by the alignment of the ramp through that area.
No, what's the legal speed limit?
The legal speed limit, so you're coming off of the freeway at 70 miles an hour and you're decelerating down to 30, so I don't know.
Well, I don't know, as you're in the curve,
70 until you hit that 30-mile-an-hour sign.
that's what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah.
So it's 70 miles an hour until you get to the speed limit sign that says 30, correct?
The 55 mile an hour speed.
Currently?
But currently
Currently it's the 30, yep, as you're going through there.
Okay.
But like I said, the speed is based on the curvature of the road, but there are no signs dictating the speed on the ramps.
So if you're going 70, you're
So-
going to be in trouble,
Yeah,
but not legal trouble. Just vehicular,
Vehicular
operational
trouble.
trouble.
Yes.
Okay, got
yep.
it.
And under your current configuration, I'm sorry, I'm asking the
keep
same
going.
question, I want to make sure I understand.
Yeah,
You're going from 70 to 55
yep.
to 30.
Yeah, if you go, go to the next slide.
And is the 30 sign in the same place the current 30 sign is?
The enforceable 30 sign is in the same place as where it is now. But we are adding, in between the 55 and the 30, we are adding advisory 30 mile an hour ahead signs now as well, which are not currently there.
Okay. And Scott, before we go any further, can you give us the delineation of the actual city of East Lansing right-of-way? So, on the map that shows the Arbor Drive in and out?
It's literally
At
like
Arbor.
2 feet from the west end of the drive.
At Arbor Drive?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, just to back up again, so we're adding the 55s at the wastewater treatment plant, and then we're adding the 30 mile an hour advisory speed signs ahead, and then you've got the 30 mile an hour speed signs. So trying to make improvements as we go along this ramp. But I forgot to mention, at pretty much all the public meetings that we had, we heard that speed was an issue through this area, and that's what we're trying to accommodate. We're trying to help with that speed. I mean, we were trying to listen with regard to that. Definitely everything in this comment, we really tried to hit that speed issue.
And don't misunderstand, we appreciate you guys are trying to solve a problem here, okay?
Yeah.
So just.
No, you keep on-
We
yeah.
gotta ask, I gotta ask stupid questions.
No, this is a discussion, so it's good. Yeah.
So at Monday's meeting that you had, you talked about road surface precautions to try to reduce that speed too, right?
Yep.
We're getting to that.
And in this area that we're talking about, from 70 to 55 to 30.
Yeah, we're adding
Were
even
you
more.
going to bring that up? 'Cause I
Yeah,
think
we're
that's-
we're definitely getting to that one. But yeah, we accommodated even more things beyond just the speed limit signs. So on the next, what slide are we on? On the next slide here, there was a question. I know there was a question with regard to, well, it's like we talked about the ramp speed, so northbound to eastbound ramp that we talked about. So I just wanted to highlight, we do have the 30 mile an hour speed limit advisory signs on the ramp as well as you're going into the eastbound Trowbridge roadway, so.
Good luck with that.
And then, this was a question that you already asked with regard to what's the speed limit for westbound Trowbridge? There's the 30 mile an hour speed limit sign, enforceable speed limit sign that is just to the east of Arbor Drive there.
Just out of curiosity, any of you guys stood down there and watched people drive up and down that road?
Yeah.
Okay. So
for sure.
when you're going west on that road and you see those nice, wonderful ramps leading to the west, haven't you observed that essentially people just accelerate immediately to get up to ramp speed?
Those ramps are slow speed entrance ramps. I mean, I myself have driven, I went to Michigan State, I live in the area, I've driven them a number of times. I personally do not take those ramps at a high speed as I'm getting onto them. As I get on the ramp, I'm accelerating because I know I'm coming into.
Because you have to.
Yeah, because you have to get up to speed
Yeah,
through that
okay.
area. But
All right.
as you're going westbound on Trowbridge, you have the 30-mile-an-hour sign, and then, like I said, those ramps are slow-speed entrance ramps. And you are not, like, at least I'm not, I know, picking up my speed when I'm getting on those ramps, so. 'Cause
Not
they're,
everyone who's entering them is going to be a traffic engineer, though.
Yep.
So some people just like to floor it,
yep,
like Councilmember Brookup.
No, I don't floor it.
yeah.
I'm scared.
It is confusing, yeah.
So if you go to you're on the next slide, perfect. So this is, I don't know who, you asked the question there about the other things that we're looking to do to help with speed. So currently, I think on the upper picture there is the what exists out there today. This is, you see the two 127 bridges going over there. There's 2 lanes of traffic. It feels wide open right now. You feel like you can do whatever you want through that area. On the bottom side, what we're doing is we're taking that down to 1 lane through that area. So this is, again, the speed issue that we heard about. So towards the wastewater treatment plant, we're going to reduce the laneage. So you got the ramp coming from southbound 127 and eastbound 496 coming together. Those are going to come together, and then shortly after that, we're going to take it down to 1 lane to help with speed through this area. So 1 12-foot lane with curb and gutter on each side. It'll make it feel much tighter, a little more uncomfortable for traffic driving through there. Additionally, when you're merging together, traffic naturally has to slow in order to do that. So that's another, in addition to the speed limit signs, that's another thing that we're doing as part of this project.
I guess just to preface with that too, our MDOT Geometrics unit downtown work around the state, this was one recommendation they made for us to incorporate to help reduce the speed. As we know, driver comfortability driving dictates speed more than the actual speed limit. So this is an option that we've incorporated to help mitigate that as well.
And then I see on the existing condition, so I see there is a curb and gutter planned there. I think that was referenced in some of our resident comments earlier. So I guess also everyone in East Lansing is immediately going to leap to game day as the worst case scenario. So like I'm a huge fan of road diets. I love it. I don't think you need 2-lane highways going through town. But we do have regularly occurring like parking lot style stop and go traffic leaving the stadium on those days. So just removing that much road surface gives me a little bit of concern in terms of backup. You know, I guess also acknowledging the resident concerns, because when that is happening, they literally can't leave their neighborhood because they don't have a back entrance in that neighborhood. So, you know, we want to get all of that traffic safely out of the stadium and heading home to wherever they're going.
So this is coming into.
Okay, so this is on the coming into side.
This is going into.
Okay, so we are keeping the 2 lanes on the going
Yes.
outside?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing is changing with the
Okay,
language there.
great.
Yep. Yeah, and this just to make sure you're aware, so it does go down to 1 lane existing.
Right
near the ramp. So we're just pulling that 1 lane further to the west.
Back, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay, I'm reading it now. Got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
There's a lot of lines on you guys' little diagrams. Okay, no, that's great. Actually, I think that's perfect. So,
Yeah,
I mean, not perfect, but it addresses my concern.
This will help, yes, with speed as well. And then on the next slide, we are also adding what's called optical speed bars. So these are little white bars on pavement markings that will go. So basically, from the proposed turnaround where people are going to be turning, we're taking these bars to the west. So they're pavement markings that, as you're traveling eastbound, they're a little bit wider, and then they get narrower and narrower as you go in, and it helps with the driver. Like they see these bars and they feel like they need to slow down.
The
MDOT only,
peripheral vision tells them
Yeah.
that there's a predator after them or something.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
MDOT only
Sorry.
uses these in like specific areas. They don't want to overuse them in the state so that traffic gets too used to seeing them. They want to use them in specific areas where they believe, they need that speed reduction help, so.
Quick question. Since you're talking optical kind of things here, anything flashing or blinking possible in this area? Is it already down in the plan that I didn't get to yet? But like the flashing signs or anything that's used for enforcement, would that be applicable through this zone?
There's ones that showed trucks tipping over. Like those are, I always find those to be very motivating.
Very motivating to see.
Braking, yeah.
We do not, there are no flashers currently proposed in the plan.
Well, at-
200 million, you can just throw them in somewhere.
At the city level, Mayor, we were talking about adding those to highlight the 30 mile per hour and that people are speeding.
Yep.
Which gets me to my final question of the night, not that I'm not totally intrigued by this, but is there some reason we can't just put a stoplight at Arbor Drive?
So Rick and I were discussing this morning, and we also discussed this with MDOT a little bit earlier. MDOT is going to be the maintainer for the foreseeable future of these ramps and any infrastructure within it. So what's interesting about a traffic signal is FHWA guidelines point out very specific requirements, and they call them warrants for the implementation of traffic signals. And the idea behind them is engineers and anyone who takes the time to observe traffic signals understands that there are disadvantages that are significant with the implementation of traffic signals. Mainly, drivers get a little bit too comfortable with their usage, and sometimes when they need to be alert, they are less alert and more controlled by the traffic signal. So conceptually, yes. Is there an option where there could be some sort of traffic signal into the future if a signal warrant is met? Yeah, that would be an option that could be considered.
Will you say, I didn't hear that last part. You said if a what is met?
A warrant.
A warrant.
Okay, but like we were talking about before, a warrant is not an edict. A warrant under the Uniform Manual or the federal stuff is a strong suggestion, but an engineer can depart from a warrant in certain circumstances, guided by the general principles, the 5 general principles at the start of the Manual of Traffic Control Devices, correct?
There would need to be strong, compelling evidence showcasing that the disadvantages of a traffic signal that is unwarranted being placed on the roadway would not introduce more unintended consequences.
Okay, and so have the combined cabinet on this issue done an analysis of whether it's feasible to put a traffic light at the corner of Abbott and Trowbridge?
Arbor.
Abbott? I mean, sorry, Arbor and Trowbridge. Thank you.
So you're asking, has a signal warrant analysis been done at Arbor Drive and Trowbridge Road?
Yes, sir.
For that? We have not done a signal warrant analysis at that location.
Thank you.
Yep. Next slide, is that? So, getting into the discussion with regard to the crossover itself. So this slide was added to show what is being proposed with regard to the crossover. We have a 290-foot length storage area plus 45-foot opening, so a 335-foot storage area for the crossover itself. It can accommodate approximately 20 vehicles, and it was designed per MDOT geometric standards. If you go on to the next slide. So this is existing Trowbridge Road looking west near the location of the proposed the crossover. The under a crossover, you can see there's a number of things going on here. You have your sign foundation, your truss sign foundation in the middle. You've got guardrail, and you've got bridge piers kind of obstructing view and stuff like that. If you go to the next slide. This is kind of a drawing of what Trowbridge will look like at that location. So we've removed, basically we've gone to a single pier bridge, so single span bridge, so there's no pier in the middle.
What is supporting that?
What's that?
What is supporting that?
The
What-
beams.
Beams.
The beams are,
As big as my house, apparently.
they're big.
They're big. I think I drive down 94 and I think I've seen them. It's like, they don't have a semi-trailer. It's like a set of wheels on the back.
Yep.
They're really freaky looking, but I'm glad that they
Yep.
support all those cars. Good job.
Yeah, special movement to actually make it there to deliver the beams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we've removed the impediments to site through this area. The one thing I do want to note is from Arbor Drive to the crossover is 450 feet. So it's I think some numbers of like 800 feet have been thrown out there. It's 450 feet from Arbor Drive to the crossover.
This is one of my favorite slides. Is that the left that the Arbor Drive people will be making if they're headed towards campus?
That's the left, yep.
And they are going into, is that 3 lanes?
It's 1 lane.
So the extra pavement there was the loon that I was talking about earlier. For a large vehicle to make that turning radii, it needs the extra pavement. It looks like 3 lanes, but technically speaking, it's just 1.
I think maybe part of the question is, or my question is, how many lanes of traffic does somebody coming out of Arbor Drive have to navigate before they get to that turn lane?
2
lanes.
2, and then the turn lane, correct?
Yep,
And
and
is
currently
the-
they've got to go across almost 4, so 2, and then as they're turning, they get into the 3rd lane and turning into potentially that 4th lane in order to navigate it, so,
The lane coming back to the east?
East.
yep.
Okay.
So
And there's how many lanes of traffic going east at that point?
at east at that point, so right at that location, I have another slide for it, of course, but
Just tell
you're
me.
getting
One
into,
lane.
you're getting into 1 lane and the ramp lane and the gore. So in that location, you've got traffic going eastbound, you've also got the ramp coming on and such at that location.
Just to confirm, are you asking at our proposed new indirect left turn that we're
Right-
showing right here?
there.
It's
Right
1
there.
lane.
1 lane,
So
1 lane.
I'm trying to come back to the east to go to the new intramural building on Harrison Road. And I just want to know, how many lanes of traffic do I have to pay attention to safely turn into this lane going east?
1.
1.
Just one?
1. If you're in this lane turning, you just have to look at 1 lane.
So, because this graphic really looks like there's 2 lanes coming off the highway
There's-
there.
yeah,
But
there's-
is
yeah.
that's the shoulder that
Yep.
I'm looking at, that I'm reading as a lane? So it's 1 lane.
Yep.
And then this large section to the out like full left, that's the loom?
That's the loom, yeah, the
Okay.
turning
Truck.
lane.
So it's really just kind of like a little extra bump
Pavement.
out in case I'm driving a semi-truck.
It's been sized for like a school bus turn.
Okay.
Like a bus turn through that area to safely navigate.
Go ahead and show us, please.
Lane, shoulder, loom.
Thank you.
But on the other side, it's shoulder, lane, turn lane.
Correct.
Is there final light, the Trowbridge Plaza area? So if traffic is headed west towards Lansing, is the final light for the driver the Trowbridge Plaza light? So they could possibly be preparing to speed up.
It's a 30-mile-an-hour speed sign
Okay,
right
so,
there.
all right. And so then my worry would more be the traffic coming off, and that the Arbor Drive people have to turn into the traffic that's coming off, and where will they be at speed-wise?
When the traffic comes off.
Yeah, coming off headed towards East Lansing.
Yeah, so currently they're doing, they're navigating that same thing except for going directly across. So the speed limit, like we mentioned before, is 50. So we're putting 55 mile an hour speed limit signs with advisory 30 mile an hour reduction, noting that it's coming down before that area, that location. And we've added a bunch of speed control options as well to that area.
The speed limit's 55.
And I hear you, but it's also been moved up, so it's closer to when the driver has not slowed down yet, when the person is trying to turn into
Yep, it's
the traffic.
450 feet to the west.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So do you anticipate they'll have to kind of press on it?
No, not any more than what they're doing today.
Okay.
So
How many cars can stack in that turn lane waiting to get back to going?
I think approximately 20 is what I noted.
Oh, okay.
It's a
So a
long
fair
storage.
number.
It is a
Okay.
long storage. Yeah.
Okay.
But also, you have experience on 127 by St. John's where you have speeds of 70 miles per hour doing indirect lefts, correct?
Yeah, so up in our expressway portion, just north of St. John's, where the freeway is stepped down to 65 mile per hour, we have just implemented indirect left turn movements all along that corridor with that high speed, and we've seen positive results as far as traffic accident reductions within that area.
And actually,
I have actually taken advantage of that, and I noticed it, and it does work really well, just specifically to go to Phillips Orchard.
Another thing that we've experienced as well, a little bit of backstory on me. I used to work for the Department of Transportation until recently I moved to the private sector. So I used to be counterparts with John and Dave here for a while. And we hold these wonderful meetings that we have every fall. They're called summits. And during these summits, we discuss concerns.
Ours are called retreats, so
That's a better name.
they're not any different, though.
So when we have these summits with the local road authorities and when we have these summits with concerned residents, we get to hear some of the same concerns that you're having right now, where I'm not going to be able to take that turn at that speed, or I am going to be using more gas to get where I want to go, or how dare you make me turn right to turn left. And we had an interesting gentleman, and I won't use his name, but he had a lot of concerns about moving grain hauling equipment through these new one-way crossovers. And it wasn't until the project was completed and the dust settled and all the signs were in the right spot that we had this next summit, and he told us that those one-way crossovers were the best thing that ever happened to his agricultural business, that he saves minutes every time he wants to make those indirect lefts compared to trying to find a gap in two-way traffic moving at 65 mile an hour plus. That made that summit so much better for us.
It's nice when they come back and say that they were wrong, or that you were,
It's not often
that it
we
wasn't
hear-
as bad. I know, we don't get it either, but it's really nice when it happens.
all right, next slide. So this slide in particular kind of shows the existing configuration, existing condition on the top of the slide, and then on the bottom of the slide it shows the build condition, what is being proposed out here. So this location is right, Arbor Drive is on the left-hand side of the map here as you're kind of looking, east into East Lansing. This shows, without the direct left, it shows the new, like the eastbound to westbound crossover, that's right there. And what we were looking at here is, this configuration mitigates existing turning movement issues at the ramp. So when you're making that direct left, and I think I have a slide of it coming up here, maybe on the next slide, shows the turn, when you're making a turn with your car, how it gets into the gore area of the ramp. This also mitigates current weave merge issues, so where traffic is trying to get into that eastbound to westbound crossover and making that direct left from Arbor Drive, you have weave merge issues right there. And then in addition, we worked with East Lansing with regard to turning movements at that, so the eastbound to westbound movement We added an addition of a concrete apron with mountable curb on the back of that because many complaints were coming in that traffic was going over the curb, ruining the grassy area between the sidewalks. So the sidewalks remaining, all we're doing is putting concrete behind the curb so vehicles can basically use that to get over, turn safely without tearing up the
Green
the
belt.
turf, the green belt through there. On the next slide, this one's going to be fun here. This is the what's called a turning template that we throw on plans in order to make sure that vehicles can make a turn safely. So what we're showing is a passenger vehicle here, kind of highlighted in blue. So existing condition shows the turn, what the turn looks like right now. As they're making that direct left from Arbor Drive. On the right-hand side, it shows in the build condition what it would look like if a car was making a turn there. You've got eastbound traffic going. You've also got the northbound to eastbound ramp there as well, so contending with that oncoming traffic at that location and turning into that gore area there. We'll note that that is a passenger vehicle there. So anything bigger than a passenger vehicle in the build condition would be sticking into the westbound roadway. So even a larger truck would have its rear end or its the back of it into the westbound roadway, which is obviously creating a very unsafe condition. What would have to happen there is cars exiting Arbor Drive looking to go into looking to go east would have to wait till both sides clear until there's a gap in traffic on both sides in order to make that movement. So it's upping the time on that. If you go to the next slide, this slide just shows what a bus movement looks like in Arbor Drive, coming from Arbor Drive. So it shows the bus, the rear end of the bus is sticking in not only into one of the westbound lanes, but also into the second one. And in order to navigate, to get onto eastbound Trowbridge, it needs to go into the ramp lane itself, whereas the crossover with the Loon, the bus can safely navigate that without going into any other lanes. It just crosses the eastbound lane, goes into the Loon, and then continues on through there. If you go on to the next slide, so one thing that we wanted to bring up was traffic model information. So at the very beginning, I talked that we did a traffic analysis of the entire corridor. It was completed in December of 2021 using the 2016 counts, so pre-COVID-19 counts. We grew those to 2019. So then in the traffic model info, for the neighborhoods, in the commercial establishments in the area through the Trowbridge area, it's taken from the ITE Trip Generation Manual, the 11th edition.
Explain ITE.
Yeah, what's that?
Explain ITE.
Yeah, Institute of Traffic Engineers, sorry.
So the Institute of Traffic Engineers publishes documents that engineers can use to help determine, judge, and estimate trips or vehicles that would be inbound or outbound from a given set of residents or businesses, and it correlates things like square footage of a business or number of dwelling units with amount of trips that would be generated in the AM and PM.
I bet that's a good bedtime read.
Yeah, and by the time we're done with this presentation, you'll be able to take the professional engineering examination.
Sweet, I'll be joining you guys.
It's offered once
You
a
get
year.
paid more than us.
So as we're looking at this traffic model, so this is all done in correlation with MDOT, the city of East Lansing, all of our stakeholders. Obviously, they reviewed all this information. So in addition to the traffic that we had taken in 2016, the counts, and then we grew it to 2019 counts, like I said, we escalate that to 2045, so 20 years out from the build year. So we use a universal 0.5% annual growth rate that's compounded annually over that 26-year period in order to forecast the traffic that is in 2045.
So the 0.5% growth that Rick's referring to is an overwhelmingly conservative approach to estimating future traffic given the current buildup of Trowbridge Road and all of its development.
And, yeah, so then all these models are calibrated and validated, and memos are written and everything else, and it's all reviewed very intensely by MDOT in different areas at MDOT, so not just people that are involved on the job day to day. So there's separate traffic individuals and everything else that take a look at this specifically. And then we also were in constant communication. We used Tri-County Regional Travel Demand Forecasting Model as well for this. There's a lot of other things that were done, but these are some of the highlights with regard to the traffic analysis work that was done on the job. So if you go to the next slide, I've got some more animation here. I think you can just hit the down arrow. So this is the PM peak. So the afternoon, or sorry, what am I on? The AM peak, sorry. This is the morning peak movement. This is the build condition. So if we are, this has got the new crossover with the loon, and what we saw in the AM peak in 2025. So this is like when it's handed over, when it's done in construction. You see a maximum queue length, so vehicles that stack up in the crossover, you see a maximum of 4 vehicles that stack up in there. And this is traffic that's coming out of Starbucks, the new Starbucks that's there, out of Arbor Drive, that are traversing this crossover because we're relocating the Arbor Drive direct left and the westbound to eastbound crossover just east of Arbor Drive. So in the AM peak in 2025, we're seeing a maximum of four vehicles queuing up in the traffic simulation model that we did for the AM peak. So if you go to the next, I guess, any questions on that?
Yeah, where that crossover is that has that loon that you're talking about, right, to the
Yep.
left? At that location, the exit ramp traffic onto eastbound Trowbridge isn't there yet, right? So when we're talking about 55 miles an hour, where they're going to reduce that speed, they're not there yet. That's further up, right?
You're talking about further
ramp
to the
traffic.
further to the west. You're talking about where we have the 55 mile an hour speed
Yes.
signs.
Yes. Yes.
So that traffic is coming down. That traffic is converging into one lane and then coming down, and then traffic is getting into that lane. If I'm understanding the.
Can you restate the question?
Yeah, I guess, so I'm talking about the crossover with the loom, right?
Yep.
Okay. They're gonna, so that they can traverse on eastbound Trowbridge.
Yep.
Okay. The exit ramp from 27
Oh.
onto eastbound.
Yeah, that's further east. Yeah, that is
Yes.
not at that location.
Right, so when we're talking about that traffic driving at a high rate of speed, they're not compromising anything with the crossover with the loom.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep. So the next slide shows the PM peak. So this is the afternoon peak time. Traffic is traveling. I think what we see in this video simulation is we see a maximum of, I think, 3 vehicles that queue up. So when I say queue again, I mean like stack up, like cars back to back in that turn lane that's 335 feet long. So you're nowhere near using the extent of that turn lane there. When I mentioned the three cars are basically right at the entrance there, and they get right into traffic. So that's the afternoon peak for 2025. On the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about, just have a little discussion on gap, because I know that came up. So like by gap, I mean you're finding location to get into traffic and move to this new crossover, the relocated crossover. So we already mentioned that trips in the model are estimated using conventional engineering means through the Institute of Traffic Engineering average trip generation. The existing traffic signal at Trowbridge crossing has an 80-second cycle.
Does anyone have any questions about the 80-second cycle that Rick is referring to? So maybe just under a minute and a half, it goes from,
No, we don't have any questions.
good.
So based on what we talked about with the trip generation manual, we show 2 to 4 vehicles per 80-second cycle, specific to like Starbucks exiting that and heading westbound for this crossover. So that's what we're seeing based on that. No queuing is shown to exist in so the morning and the afternoon peak hours at Arbor Drive specifically. So with the model, we look at traffic that's coming down Arbor Drive. We're not seeing any queuing happening. They're able to find their gaps with the traffic signal. And also that it's actuated. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, they're finding gaps with the traffic signal and with the additional traffic that's being re-diverted to the crossover, which was the concern.
And then I did want to note that specifically for the counts, for the traffic counts that we have with regard to what we used out there, we did go out and field verify to make sure that we're not, based on the traffic manual counts that were used, that we're not underestimating the traffic. We're actually being very conservative with the traffic that we're showing in the models, to the point of 25 to 60% higher than what is currently out there today.
So you're overcorrecting
We're
your model,
overcorrecting.
essentially. Okay.
Yeah, we're overestimating the amount of traffic. And then with the 0.5% increase factor, that just it compounds the amount of traffic that we're showing, so that we should be way above what is.
So the terminology that's most thrown around is worst case scenario. Even though I hate to use that terminology, we're well above that.
Well, I didn't hear that last part.
We're well above the potential worst case scenario of traffic.
Gotcha.
So are you guys still using the terminology 4-hour volume and peak hour volume?
For this one, we're using the peak hour analysis for the AM and PM.
Okay, and in the stuff you gave us, do you have any raw data on the peak hour volume?
In this slide show,
Anything you gave us?
this is the only thing that we've shown you so
Yeah,
far.
so
I
you
guess.
have that?
I guess
Peak
with
hour volume counts?
We have peak hour volume counts along Trowbridge Road.
Yeah. If you could get those to us at some point later, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
We could do that.
Please.
And then the only other bullet I had on here is I know there were questions about measuring gaps and stuff like that, and actual gaps in traffic flow are evaluated under actual field conditions, so it would only be possible to, once the new traffic patterns are established, to look at those gaps in the field at that point. So we just wanted to make that. So now we're looking 22 years into the future based on what we talked about with regard to.
Ooh, I hoped you guys had that.
So, spoiler alert, there's no flying cars.
All right, I'm super bummed now and really disappointed. Okay, go ahead.
So if you hit the slide, this is now the morning peak hour in 2045, and kind of to the question there, what we're looking at, that really the peak time is about 15 minutes. So.
Yep. So we analyze our peak hour based on an anticipation that there is a very heavy flow of vehicles during a 15-minute period. We call that the peak 15-minute period based on the peak hour factor.
So then what we're showing here is the crossover. Oh, how far ahead are we? Too far. We jumped 2 slides.
We did?
Yeah. Oh, no, sorry.
this is
This is the right one, sorry. Sorry. So this slide here is the AM peak, and what we're looking at is retaining. So the crossover that we are relocating to the west, this is the westbound to eastbound crossover that we are relocating. So we're eliminating this crossover. We want to show you is what happens in the AM peak to this crossover if it was to be retained. So go ahead and maybe hit that. So what happens at this crossover here, and again, this is a crossover that we're relocating, is you'll see the blue cars are stacking up in the crossover right there. And what ends up happening in a second here is those cars end up stacking up, as you can see, into westbound traffic. And it basically creates a situation.
So this is currently, this is not the revised?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is if we retain that crossover. They end up stacking up into westbound traffic and creating big congestion through that area, and it actually ends up stacking up through the Trowbridge crossing, and then cars start stacking up in Trowbridge crossing as well. So as part of our analysis, we've got to look at these different things. This is one of the big reasons why we cannot maintain that crossover at that location.
But you have not done a study of a traffic light at that intersection.
There's a traffic light right just to the east of that.
A traffic
if you-
light at Arbor and Trowbridge. You all have not yet done a study to apply the warrant analysis to that intersection with regard to a light, correct?
Correct. However, when you look at the roadways approaching where there would be a stopped condition for this crossover, you are stopping effectively a very short ramp that could potentially, especially on game day, back onto the freeway location. So we go back to the unintended consequences of infrastructure improvements and hypotheticals. That signal could do a hell of a lot more harm than good.
Sir, I understand that. But you have excluded the possibility of a signal in your analysis at this point in time without doing the analysis.
We have not done an analysis at
Thank
that
you. I'm
location.
not-
Yep.
That's fine. I get it. I just, you know.
So then on the next slide, this is the 2045 morning peak with the build condition. So this is where we're looking at the new crossover that is just west, 450 feet west of Arbor Drive. This is, like I said, 22 years out in the future, so you're compounding that traffic. And you end up getting, stacking up within that crossover to about 80% of the crossover total capacity. So like I said, this is taking like Greg said, like a worst case scenario for the amount of traffic that's coming through this area. And you'll see it stacks up and then it
What would that equate
clears.
to in a wait time? Like, so if somebody's, getting to, how much extra time would they need to budget? I mean, I know that these people, like, some of them haven't been born yet, but like, anyway, can you just kind of estimate? So if you're the 8th car back in that stream, like, how long are you sitting there waiting to turn?
Yeah.
When you're like late for work because you couldn't find your car keys?
Yeah. We have those numbers. We don't, I just can't pull them up
Okay.
for you right now, but we can give you that
Yeah,
information.
I'd be
Yeah.
curious, yeah.
Yep.
As a chronic underplanner.
Yep, yeah, that's no problem.
Okay.
But so what happens is it stacks up to like 80% and then it clears very quickly
Mm-hmm.
through there. So like Greg kind of noted, it's like your worst 15 minutes in your
Mm-hmm.
AM peak is where you're seeing that, and then it really does clear up very nice where you're not getting that queuing situation anymore. So then on the next slide, you've got the afternoon peak. So this is 22 years out again in the afternoon, and what we're seeing, I believe, all we were seeing were like 4 cars queuing up in the PM peak. So your morning peak is where you're seeing more of the stacking, and it makes sense because you're seeing more traffic coming into East Lansing from southbound 127 and eastbound 496. In the afternoon, they're leaving. So you're not seeing that the conflict or the traffic, coming in. So everybody is able to get through pretty quickly. 2 more slides to go. So why the direct crossover at Arbor Drive is being relocated, what we're looking at here. So Scott brought up the Towards Zero Deaths initiative and the FHWA Safe Systems approach. These are major initiatives for the Federal Highway Administration and MDOT in particular. These are very big things. I mean, we talked about ourselves as professional engineers, making sure that we make sure that people can not, like they don't make mistakes out there, try to limit the mistakes that they're gonna make. And when they do make a mistake, that their bodies can, take so much in an accident. Our bodies can. So we're trying to limit those types of severity of crashes as part of this project. We're really taking what is out there right now and trying to make it a safer system for people traveling down Trowbridge. Current MDOT geometric design standards, so that's a very big one. We couldn't necessarily get this project through approvals and such based on some of the designs that would be proposed out here. Existing crash history, we already talked about that. Reduction in conflict points. I think we hit that one pretty good. Northbound US 127 to eastbound Trowbridge ramp alignment change. So these are all things that we're looking at with regard to why we're taking this away, why we're relocating it further west. I think another one, in my mind, I mentioned this at the Transportation Commission meeting, is I stamped the whatever 2,000 page sheet set of plans for this job. So this $204 million job. I personally would not stamp this job with that crossover in it because of the safety concerns and what could potentially happen to people out here. So that, to me, it's a very personal thing that I want to try and make this, a better situation than what it is right now. And I know Dave stamped a plan set as well, and can't speak for Dave, but I'm assuming.
Stamp is our seal of approval, because we're professional engineers, we're licensed. So that's kind of keeps us legally obligated.
And then indirect lefts accommodated for vehicles up to buses now on the new crossover. So that was something we also heard as part of the public comment, is that buses coming out of hotels and such wanted to be able to actually make a turning movement. Now we're accommodating this as part of that as well. So, and then why the westbound to eastbound Trowbridge crossover is being relocated. I'm not going to go through all these different things, but I think the big one that I wanted to just mention is, again, is that queuing back up in that design year. So out in the 2045 year, where it queues up back into westbound traffic, creates a very unsafe condition for vehicles traveling that way. So I think that was it. I don't know, Dave or John, if you guys had want to add another slide.
Yeah.
More animation.
I think we talked enough so far. Let's see if there's any other questions.
We talked about this a little bit at Monday's meeting, and it wasn't addressed here today. And I think the neighbors' concern there is really that's their only way out of their neighborhood is on Trowbridge through Arbor, Palmer, right? And there was some discussion on maybe in the future coming up with another location where they can exit their neighborhood off of Harrison, right?
Well, so we're talking about an emergency egress path. There's currently a 10-foot concrete path going through Emerson Park. We're looking at providing connectivity either to the north or to go further east through some city right-of-way. We want to get something there to provide redundancy in case of a train derailment or other access for vehicle egress in an emergency condition.
But it's not meant to be a regularly traversable road. It's a pathway that could accommodate cars if it needed to be.
Oh, okay.
Any further questions?
Thanks, guys, for running the gauntlet.
No,
You
thank
did
you.
a nice job.
I appreciate it. I know
Welcome
this
to
is
East Lansing.
No, it's good. It was meant as a discussion with comments and questions, and we appreciate that. So I want to make sure the information is out there.
So, council, for follow-up, I have peak hour volumes, wait time for the 24/5 as-built, and maybe some further insight in the traffic warrant analysis. My one concern with the traffic warrant analysis, just off the cuff, I think the geometry for the eastbound traffic does not support that, except for a stop bar well east of Arbor, but I think the team can come back with that. That's just off the cuff, but that's stuff we can bring back. And the next step here would be wrapping up whatever type of concept that we'd present to council at a future date for your consideration for an approval. But we want to provide that information at that time so you're aware of that or well in advance or for your consideration.
And Scott, I appreciate that. And East Lansing is a data town. And so my perception of this is you've done all this data, but there's this little niche, and I understand all of you are going to walk out of here and you're all going to stay in the parking lot and you're going to say, who was that crazy guy who kept asking us about the warrants? Because all of us know that that's idiotic, okay? And maybe it is. But I guess I'd like to have the data come back to us so you can prove that I'm an idiot, okay? So that's all I'm asking is let's look at everything, because frankly, the neighborhood's never going to be satisfied unless they're satisfied you've looked at everything. Because a lot of them have doctorates, and they got lawyers, and they got doctors, and they got public health people and everything else, and they want to know the data. So that's why I'm where I'm at. I understand you can say to me, well, that's not going to work because this, that, and the other thing, but there's a specific procedure in the manual. You all know it's there. There's exceptions, there's combinations, and it seems to me it makes some sense to take a look at that before you come back to us.
Anybody reading the MUTSID, is, you're reading the MUTSID during the meeting, so the Michigan.
I'm sorry, I can't hear
You're
you.
reading the MUTSID.
The
right?
MMUTCD.
MMUTCD manual during the meeting, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's an old one, so that's why I kept asking you.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, council, for listening to the team. I want to thank MDOT and Bergman for being here. They've done a good job of refining and answering questions, and really appreciate that partnership.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you to the staff and to the public. At this point, meeting is adjourned.